This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone! Welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. Welcome to another episode of Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast. This week, we're talking about Lisbon, Portugal. It was such beautiful weather. Of course, Lisbon is sunshine most days of the year, and half the trip, it was one of the few times it rains in Lisbon, but even with the rain, it was an incredible time. I enjoyed myself way more than I thought I was going to. So for this episode talking about Lisbon, I'm going to talk about having a more positive attitude. So here goes nothing. For eating in Lisbon on a gluten-free diet, I would just say, as a rule of thumb, be very careful relying upon the Find Me Gluten-Free app. I would try to look at the Facebook support groups. I would even look to Google more than I would look to the Find Me Gluten-Free map, because there were so many times where I was trying to find food in Lisbon and I would follow the Find Me Gluten-Free app and I would be searching, because every time I would go to a place that the Find Me Gluten-Free app said was okay, it turned out they weren't willing to serve anybody with a gluten-free diet. So again, this blog hopefully is a nice starting point. If there's things on this list that does not interest you, go to Facebook pages, go to Google. Those will be more reliable than the Find Me Gluten-Free app. Some places I ate at, one being Zenith. There's a lot of gluten-free options here, and I was able to have gluten-free toast with poached eggs, mushrooms, and spinach, which was really enjoyable. I also went to Cafe do Rio. Make sure you keep saying that you need a gluten-free version of whatever you're eating, because when it comes to the desserts, they'll list things as being gluten-free, and then turns out they're not gluten-free. So just do the annoying person with celiac thing where you say, hey, I'm ordering this, it's gluten-free, right? Just do that at Cafe do Rio. But they're usually pretty good once you say it the first time, because I know I ordered and I said, oh, I would love this brownie. And they said, oh, it's not. They pointed it out to me, it's not gluten-free. And I pointed out to them, it said it was gluten-free on the menu. So they would need to update that, and it all worked out. But just lesson learned or it was another reminder, I should say, that I don't need to worry about being annoying, because it could save me 6 hours of feeling very, very sick and 2 days after of recovery. Organizado, it was not the greatest quality of food, but it did the job of filling me up. Make sure you bring a celiac card with you to communicate, because I know people make celiac cards when you go to restaurants where you could show it to folks in the language explaining celiac and what that means for the food that you need. Because communication at this particular restaurant, with me not knowing any Portuguese, was a little difficult. But again, if you have that celiac card, hopefully that's helpful in making sure that there's no confusion when it comes to your safety. Manjerica, I loved the staff there, and there were a ton of options. Lianeta was another place that I went to. It seems to be more of a date night spot, but the food was good and there were different options. Okay, now For grocery shopping, if you have an Airbnb and you want to rely on buying stuff from a grocery store, I believe it said Celerio. Again, go to the hieatexplorelove.com blog to check the spelling, but it's a really great grocery store with an amazing gluten-free section. And I, as a kid, used to have these ice cream sandwiches. This is pre my celiac diagnosis, and I missed so much these ice cream sandwiches. They were just such a great snack to be able to have as a kid. And they sold the gluten-free version of these ice cream sandwiches, and they cannot be found anywhere else. So make sure to check out that grocery store. Pinocchio, it was incredibly expensive, but the fish was really good. I'm not sure if it was so good that it was worth how expensive it was, but the staff was incredibly educated, which made me feel really comfortable with having a gluten-free dish. El Muño was another place that I went to. It was pretty mediocre gluten-free pasta, but still gluten-free pasta. And my final place that I will recommend is a place called Deer Breakfast, and I had an amazing Eggs Benedict there, and the hollandaise sauce was even gluten-free, so that was amazing. I really enjoyed the tours that I did, most of the tours, I should say, that I did in Lisbon. I did one tour a day, and I was there for about a week. And then I would spend my afternoon going and checking out the places that were recommended on the tours, which that was the perfect thing to do in Lisbon. One tour I did was the Lisbon free walking tour. Again, if you want any of the links to any of the tours, please go to the blog, hieatexplorelove.com. The Lisbon free walking tour was a really cool tour. It's one of my favorite tours I've ever done. Make sure you request Gabriel if he's still a tour guide. Based on his recommendation, I went to go visit the oldest bookstore in the world. I feel like Gabriel gave the best look at the overall history of the city and really was a great way to start off the trip and understanding what I was looking at other tours. Alfama and Moreira free tour. I would just say if you want to do that tour, it's like certain neighborhoods within Lisbon, be prepared for a lot of uphill climbs. If you're going to Lisbon, it's like Istanbul where it's very steep hills. You've got to do workouts for probably 6 months in preparation for places like that where you're getting your stamina up so you could do these uphill climbs. It was rough, but it was interesting to visit the older neighborhoods of Lisbon. Another tour, which was also called Lisbon Free Tour, it was similar to the free walking tour, but provided some different insights and different facts, which I also found interesting. I preferred the other one that I mentioned with Gabriel over this one, but I do feel you could go to both tours and get something a little different out of each of them. There's also a Lisbon music free walking tour. It's interesting because Lisbon is where Alfada music was created. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Now, apologies if I'm not. So I thought we were going to go into the depths of that type of music and really learning about it. It was just kind of going to different landmarks and then having to listen to the tour guide play music. And it was just me and one other girl on the tour, and we were just stuck listening to him play something on a speaker for 3-4 minutes, and my attention span just does not allow for that. I think you have to be a super duper music lover in order to do that tour. Take that what you will. If you want to go for it. If not, no judgment here. As we're all aware, while I was in Glasgow, I had received the unfortunate news that essentially it's kind of a rite of passage when you're an adult that my company downsized and my department was deemed irrelevant, and me along with a lot of other people were laid off. I grew up with a great-grandfather that his famous saying, the family motto is attitude is everything. And I am someone that deals with a lot of anxiety and depression. I get very frustrated when people just say, oh, well, there's nothing that you could do about it, live on the positive side. And attitude is everything. And I feel like that became a throwaway line in the family of when you were sad, attitude is everything. If you were frustrated, attitude is everything. And I don't think it's that simple. And I don't think that's what my great-grandfather meant when he was saying that of, well, just focus on the positive, don't focus on the negative. Yes, that was a part of what he was talking about, but it's something larger. Attitude is everything is also of a practice. And it does not mean that it is not okay to have moments where you grieve. And I feel like that's where a lot of generations that have come before me get caught up and misunderstand. And that's where the biggest disconnect between my generation and generations that have come before, of you really need to be allowed to feel the negative emotions, so that way it's processed, it's been let out, and then it's way easier to live in the positive. And then once you're ready to live in the positive and you've released all those negative emotions, you have to start training yourself to be more positive. It's a choice. And that's not even the case for everybody. It's not necessarily a choice to just be positive and then you are. It's not a choice to be negative. People's brains are chemically engineered, and I'm not a neurologist, so I'm oversimplifying things, but there is something that comes with of your brain is just gonna be wired a certain way to process things. And if you want to change your wiring, you need to train. Just like if you want to, I feel like there's not enough emphasis or understanding in that your brain is the same as your physical body. Of if you want to get your body to a healthy state, I'm not talking about losing weight. I'm not talking about looking like you have a six-pack and looking like a model. I'm talking about being just naturally, physically fit. You need to do certain things to get your body to a healthy place. Same thing with your brain. You have to do workouts for your brain to get your brain to live in a healthy place. Lisbon was my first stop on what I'm calling my layoff tour. I'm going and hitting all the places that I wanted to see on my bucket list before I went back to the United States, because I knew I was never going to have an opportunity like this again. And, I was dealing with a lot. It wasn't just a matter of losing my job. My finances were low. I've been traveling a lot because things with my dual citizenship case were not going as well as they should have been going. I was a mess. So I decided, you know what? I will make the money back eventually. But what I needed to do was do what was best for my mental health and go and achieve all the dreams and focus on the positive of, not focus on the positive, but go and fulfill everything and do what was best for me, and the rest would be figured out later. So what I was deciding to do on my layoff trip and all the different stops I was going to take, I was going to spend every day at the end of the day, and Lisbon is where I started this, of acknowledge the negative with the positive. Every day I was going to have a thorn where I'm like, you know what, that really sucked, and allowed myself to feel like, oh, that was not great. And I was also going to talk about the rose of that was the beautiful part of my day. And that was going to help me get to the next day and the next and the next and the next. Listen, it has not been perfect. There's been some time since I've been to Lisbon, and I'm almost done with what I'm calling my layoff tour of 2024. And even today, I had a rough day where I needed to feel all my feelings and cry and say, it's not fair, it's not right. I feel like I'm being kicked while I'm down. And then I'm also allowing myself to look outside the window and be like, darn, I'm in Vienna right now, or I'm in Lisbon, or I'm in some part of Spain. How lucky am I that I get to say that? And that doesn't mean that the things that stink don't still stink. It just means that I have to teach myself to acknowledge the balance. And so it's very difficult for me. And I do feel when I go back to the United States, I do need to go back into therapy and sort some things out. But that's, one of the skills that I do. I figure out myself of, okay, it's time now to go back into therapy and work some stuff out. Or I write short stories. That's what I'm starting to do now too. Or I go and achieve some dreams. Or I just say, I sit in the negativity for a while and then give myself something positive to hold on to. I don't think we need to say, oh, there's no use in being positive and there's no use in, talking about the past. When it's done, there's nothing that you can do about it. There are things I still carry with me. That way I can use them as learnings for the future. And if I need to feel and be upset and be angry about things that happened in the past, that there's nothing I could do about it anymore, I don't see why it would be a bad thing to feel those emotions and let them out, because it's going to be a heck of a lot worse for me and for a lot of other people if it just gets bottled up. And I think lesson learned here for people, if you're watching a family member or a friend go through this, stop telling them that they need to be more positive and focus on the positive. Stop telling them there's no use in dwelling on the past, move forward, look to the future. People are going to have to deal with emotions and let them out in whatever way they need to, in whatever time they need to. There's no timeline on grieving, whether that's the loss of a person in your life, whether that's the loss of a job or loss of life as you knew it. People need the time and space, I unfortunately lost a really close friend and mentor of mine during COVID. If in 10 years I see something and start crying over her loss, you know what? Then I need to be allowed to feel that. If I need to be upset because of things that happened in a previous relationship because something triggered me that day, I need to allow myself to feel those emotions. I'm not dwelling in it. I'm not only focusing on that, but I do need to work through it so I can have a better tomorrow. And I think we need to start learning how to give people the space to do that. But that was what I learned in Lisbon. That was my lesson of the week. It was overall a really amazing trip. It really surprised me because I had no expectations of what to expect in Lisbon, and it was a really great time. Time for the wrap-up questions. Do I feel the city is safe for those with celiac? I think it was not bad. Favorite place to eat? Let's go with deer breakfast. Favorite memory from the experience? The first tour I went on, and I met a bunch of cool people that we had really in-depth, awesome discussions as a tour group, and Gabriel was a great tour guide. That will be my favorite memory. Is this a city to vacation to or live in? Both. And even seems like people, if you have a remote job, they're encouraging more people to live there if possible. Is this a place to relax or be active? Be active, because you're just climbing and walking and doing some physical stuff. How are the people? Very kind. Definitely recommend Lisbon for sure in your upcoming travel plans. That's it for this week. Thank you so much, guys. Looking forward to next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.